Hello, greetings to everyone from India. I'm Dr. Atul Patil, Director at MIT School of Holistic Development, MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, India. It's indeed a great privilege for me to be here and throw some light on a very interesting topic, that is the art of listening. And the three very important steps to be a good listener are: number one, listen; number two, listen; number three, listen. Listening, my friends, is very essential. And if you are a good listener, people would like your company, people would like to talk to you because you lend your ears and you understand their emotions. The only question is, on day-to-day basis, we listen to many people, many things, but how much do we remember over the period of time? And let me demonstrate for that what happens if people speak and we listen. So if I listen this much, the question is, how much do I remember and how much am I able to reproduce? So if we see that I listen this much, and when it comes to speaking, and as time passes, probably many people sometimes are not able to reproduce what they listen. So the question is, why? What happens to the knowledge, the ideas that I listened to, I got? However, I was not able to reproduce them, and therefore one has to be good listener. And let me therefore begin with my presentation and throw light on various techniques that we need to be aware of when we talk about the art of listening. Language has drastically been influenced with the use of technology. If we peep into the past, language has always changed. With the invention of printing, language changed as new expressions came into the language, especially in the written communication. When telephone was invented, new phrases were added to language. When computer was invented, again, words received different shades of meanings, as you can see on the screen. I can say once upon a time, when window was just a small square hole in a house, when application was something written on a piece of paper, when keyboard was the piano, when mouse was an animal, when file was an important official document, and when hard drive was a very hectic long road trip, when cut was done with a knife and paste with glue, and when web was a spider's house and virus was glue. And mind you, apple and blackberry were only fruits. This is how language has changed with the influence of technology, and therefore the way we communicate has also, as a result, changed. Look at this example of how parents communicate with the child. The father writes and sends a message to his son saying, "Dear Andy, how have you been? Your mother and I are fine. We miss you. Please sign off your computer and come downstairs for something to eat. Love, Dad." They're in the same house, but this is how they communicate with each other. And today's youth go beyond this and they use a lot of acronyms, abbreviations when they communicate with each other, formally or informally. However, they need to bring or draw that borderline between formal communication and informal communication. And therefore, they should not use such acronyms or abbreviations when they communicate formally. So a lot of abbreviations that you see on the screen are used by youngsters, and they certainly carry specific meanings. However, sometimes there can be ambiguity. For example, LOL stands for laughing out loud, but it also stands for love you lot. So there might be ambiguity if we only use such acronyms. Not only words, they go beyond and they use such symbols. Again, these symbols also convey their emotions. And therefore, some of us might not be able to follow what exactly these symbols mean. But this is how language is changing. And therefore, let us not get into the debate where whether this is creative use of language or exploitation of language. As I said, we need to draw that boundary line and use language effectively. Now, when we look at people, we see that there are many students who have brilliant ideas, but they are not able to express. As I demonstrated in the beginning, we listen a lot, but if we are not able to express what we understand or question what we do not understand, then what is the use of having such brilliant ideas? So our brilliance is not going to work if we do not work at it and learn the art of listening and the art of speaking and become effective communicators. So what is it that holds many people back? And the answer to this is they lack in their soft skills, because most of us usually focus on the development of hard skills, which are our technical skills, but one has to simultaneously develop his or her soft skills, because technical skills will make any candidate eligible for an interview, for example, but it is soft skills that will not only give him a job, but will always help him climb the ladder of success. For example, as a manager or even in any other field for that matter. So technical skills may give anyone a job, but soft skills can always help him or her climb the ladder of success. In a nutshell, we can say communication and soft skills have become like passport to success in today's context. Now, again, if we peep into the past, we see how we used to deal with mistakes using an eraser when we used to write with pencil in school. In official correspondence, we used whitener because we only had typewriters, computers were not available, and you could not redo everything that you would have typed. So using a whitener was the only solution. And with the invention of computers, we started using them. And since then, it is just a matter of two keys on the keyboard, Control and Z. This is how we deal with mistakes. So we have to keep the past in mind. We have to be alert in the present, and we have to keep an eye on the future. And therefore, only hard work that we learn from the past examples is not going to help us. We need to be smart like this thirsty crow, which doesn't spend time putting pebbles into the jar one after the other, but it simply uses a straw and drinks water, which is more hygienic and more time saving. So this will happen only if we keep on updating our knowledge. Now let me check how good you are at listening. Here is a small test for you all. And if you answer this question by listening to me carefully, you will be able to prove that you are a good listener or a good reader. So here it goes. There is an extremely tall coconut tree and there are four animals. First one, the lion. Second one, giraffe. Third one, a squirrel. And the fourth one, the chimpanzee. So these four animals come together one day and they decide to have a competition. What is the competition? To see who can get a banana fastest from the tree. So who do you think will win? Huh? Ready with your answer? If you think the lion or the giraffe or the squirrel or the chimpanzee would win, please let me know. If your answer was the lion, you are a deep thinker, but unfortunately wrong. If your answer was the giraffe, you are very logical, but again wrong. If the answer was the squirrel, you are an optimistic person, but unfortunately wrong. And if your answer was the chimpanzee, you are absolutely wrong. Because remember, I said it was a tall coconut tree. So bananas don't grow on coconut trees. So paying attention to each and every word that we listen to is very essential to be able to comprehend the message. So a couple of more questions. What do you put in a toaster? Did you say toast? No, we put bread in a toaster. Now please say silk 5 times with me. Silk, 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 silk. Now please spell the word silk with me. S-I-L-K, silk. What do cows drink? Did you say milk? Cows don't drink milk. They drink water. Therefore, listening is very important. And listening and speaking together will make you good communicator. So if you wish to survive in this cutthroat competition, only degree is not going to help you. And therefore, additionally, nowadays people go for computer skills, programming skills. But if you are good at communication or soft skills, you will be able to keep this balance very effectively, because communication is the key for human connection and your personal as well as professional career success. Now, when we talk about communication, we use language, and this language is called a vehicle of communication. So this vehicle has got 4 wheels, and I've deliberately kept silence in the beginning because sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Then we have non-verbal communication, that is body language, followed by speaking and writing. And in today's session, I'm going to throw more light on the art of listening and the art of speaking. And only having this vehicle is not going to help you. You may know driving, but if you don't follow the traffic rules, similarly, these are the rules when we communicate. The place where I'm going to communicate, the amount of time that I'm given, the style in which I'm going to communicate, it could be formal, informal, intimate, frozen, or neutral. The amount of information that I'm going to share, and what is the occasion, the context, the environment, I need to consider all these aspects to be able to be an effective communicator. Now, when we talk about the process of communication, unlike speaking, we need minimum 2 people. One is a sender and the other one is a receiver. Now, the sender always encodes his or her ideas, thoughts, desires, emotions into a specific form of language. And therefore, the medium could be verbal, it could be written, or even it could be non-verbal. And when the receiver receives the message, the receiver has to decode the message to understand the meaning attached to that particular word or an expression or a sentence for that matter. And the process of communication doesn't complete here. The receiver now becomes a sender, and he or she has to provide feedback or respond. This exchange of ideas keeps on happening, and that is what is called communication. But in this process of communication, sometimes there could be barriers. Now, these barriers could be physical barriers, there could be mental or psychological barriers, or there could be linguistic barriers, there could be cultural barriers, and we need to overcome these barriers to be able to communicate effectively. Now, remember, communication is much more as an art than merely a science. And therefore, we must develop, practice, and master this art of communication. And the journey begins with the art of listening. Remember, at many workplaces, many a time, around 70% of mistakes at any workplace usually happen because of lack of or poor communication. That is how communication is really very crucial. And Robert Frost, like he said, the world can be divided into 2 categories. One, where there are people who have something to say, but they cannot say it, they cannot express themselves. So forget about when you want to express, to impress, they're not able to even express themselves. And the other group where there are people who have nothing to say, no, not much knowledge, but they are very talkative, they are very presentable, they are very good at communication. And therefore, one should ask, which group do I belong? Please remember, success for each one of us, no matter what field or area or the country, any place that we are at or in, we need to be good at communication, because every workplace, the global or the local or the diverse workplace, requires good command when it comes to communication skills. Now, when we communicate, our perceptions may be different. Our perspectives may not be always the same. Look at this picture, for example. If I ask you, what do you see in this picture? Some of you, I'm confident, would say that I see a young girl. And some of you, on the contrary, might say that I see an old woman. And both of you are right. It depends on how you perceive this picture. Both answers are possible. Now, the question is, how much time do you think we actually spend communicating with each other on day-to-day basis? Of course, it may differ from one profession to another, but usually we spend around 16% for reading, 9, 30, and 45% for writing, speaking, and listening, respectively. And therefore, if we wish to be good at communication, we must focus more on the development of listening, followed by speaking, followed by reading, and ultimately writing. Because remember, this is how we learned our mother tongue. We didn't start writing directly, we didn't start reading directly, we started with listening. And it is said that listening begins even before the baby is born. When the baby is in mother's womb, listening starts from that period. So that is the first skill that you start acquiring your mother tongue. Then the baby is born and then it starts uttering certain sounds, then slowly learns to produce words followed by phrases, and then ultimately sentences. Only when the child goes to the school, it then learns to read and then ultimately write. Unfortunately, our education system has been mainly focusing on the development of reading and writing, reading books, writing exams, but listening and speaking should not take a back seat, because in communication, they have a very crucial role to play. Now, if you are good at communication, if you have this key, you can unlock many doors of opportunities, because communication is the key with the help of which you can achieve almost all your goals. And someone has said that even if I lose everything that I have, but if I have this power of speaking, I'm confident that I'll able to regain everything that I had. So that is the power that we are blessed with. And therefore, when we talk about these 4 basic skills, we need to develop them and have an integrated approach to become effective communicators. Now, in this presentation, as I said initially, I'm going to throw mainly on the art of listening and the art of speaking. And as I said, listening is the first skill acquired unconsciously. It depends on the environment, the exposure that we have. Now, when we talk about listening, it is a receptive skill because we receive language, and speaking, on the contrary, is a productive skill because we produce language. Now, God has given us 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. Why? Listen more and speak less, or why? The input has to be effective so that we can have an effective output. Now, many people assume or believe that listening means hearing. Please remember, listening is beyond, far beyond than merely hearing. Hearing is a physical activity. Any sound coming to my ears and I am able to comprehend, that is hearing. But when I put my mind thinking into it, that becomes listening. So listening is a voluntarily done action. Unfortunately, our ears are open 24/7. But that doesn't mean we listen to each and everything, to each and everyone with equal attention every time. So if I don't wish to speak, for example, I can close my mouth. If I don't wish to see anything, I can close my eyes. But if I don't wish to listen to anything or anybody, I physically cannot close my eyes. They're open 24 by 7, even when we are asleep at night. And therefore, some people take listening for granted, or they do not pay much attention to develop this art of listening. We therefore need to be active listeners. And not only in professional life, if you are a good listener, even in your personal life, people would like your company. And therefore, it can also be a secret to a successful married life. If you are a good listener, you can have good relationship with your family members as well. Now, you need to be an active listener. And let me check whether you are all active listeners or not. I'll ask you a couple of questions and then you have to answer. And this is a self-test. So number one, the first question is, one day I was going to a market and I saw Mr. and Mrs. Saxena coming with their two children. And along with those two children, there were two cats and two dogs. So how many animals and human beings together were going to the market? Please think and answer. And I'm sure that most of you would say 8 or 7 or 6 or even 9. But unfortunately, all these answers are incorrect. The correct answer is 1. Remember what I said, one day I was going to the market. Imagine the market is there. I was going and I saw Mr. and Mrs. Joshi coming with their children. They were coming from the market. And along with those two children, there were two cats and two dogs. So the question was, how many animals and human beings together were going to the market? Only I was going to the market. There were no animals with me. And therefore, one has to be really careful about listening. Now, in communication, the biggest problem is many people usually do not listen to comprehend or understand, but only to reply. And many people, in fact, do not respond but react. Please remember, reaction is not thoughtful. Response is always thoughtful. So please take your time and then respond. If you react, it could be out of anger or without any thought, and then you may have to repent as time passes. Another important thing when we talk about listening or speaking, the most important thing in communication is to listen or hear what is not being said. Sometimes you have to, like in reading, read between the lines. Similarly, you have to listen between the dialogue when it comes to listening. Now, very interestingly, if you observe the spelling of these two words, listen and silent, you will find that there are 6 letters in both the words, because the word listen contains the same letters as the word silent, and the secret of communication lies in this. To be able to be a good listener, you must be a silent person. Unless you are silent, unless even your mind is silent, quiet, you will not be able to listen. And therefore, one has to learn to be silent. Look at the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient Indian, very famous scripture from the Mahabharata, where Arjuna, who is in dilemma whether to fight or not to fight, when he sees his own relatives on the battlefield of war. So he approaches Lord Krishna, and throughout the beginning of this Mahabharata, when Lord Krishna guides him, Lord Krishna is constantly listening to Arjuna very silently. It is only Arjuna who continuously speaks while Lord Krishna listens, listens, and listens. Because you need intelligence to allow the other person to speak. You need intelligence to listen. We all consciously speak to each other, continuously speak to each other. But a real conversation will not happen because we simply carry out simultaneous monologues with each other. We are polite enough to pretend that we are listening. However, in turn, we need to be heard. So only when you listen to you, you will be able to listen to others. So listen to your inner voice first. Look at the inner sunshine first. And then you will learn to listen to others. You will understand others' problems. And you will also listen to yourself. So this is the message from the Bhagavad Gita. Now, what stops us from being good listeners? Many people think that listening is not my problem. It's an inborn talent that I have got. No, listening and hearing mean the same. That is why they don't pay much attention. They think if I can hear any sound, that means I am good at listening. Good readers are always good listeners because we receive knowledge by reading or by listening. And therefore, listening is very essential. Smarter people are better listeners. You will always find that. Listening also improves with age. But it is said that the ability to learn any language or something decreases as the age increases. And therefore, the earlier the better. Then preoccupation, any thoughts that we have preoccupied, any prejudice or bias against the speaker, for example, or self-centeredness, not putting ourselves into the shoes of the speaker, understanding what he or she is trying to convey, or being very stereotyped. Listening skills, many people think that they are difficult to learn, so why to unnecessarily spend our time and energy? Inattentiveness, attention span, that is the major concern nowadays because we have this technology, mobile phones, which distract our attention. Lack of interest, if you do not have any passion to learn, lack of knowledge, because it is said little knowledge is dangerous thing. Some people have listening dilemma. Listening is a challenge. We spend over 40% of time listening. So we spend more time listening. If we are not a good listener, we will be less effective communicator. Please remember this. We usually speak at the rate of about 150 words per minute. But when we talk about listening, we can listen or hear at the rate of about 1000 words per minute. So how can we improve listening skills? Number one, we must eliminate distractions. If there is any distraction, any distraction which could be in front of my eyes or even it could be a mental distraction, we need to overcome. We must focus on the speaker. We should try to concentrate and think about what the speaker is conveying. We need to have an open mind, a learning nature. We must look for non-verbal clues. The body language of the speaker can help us understand the message more effectively. Then we should not react to emotive words. We should ask questions if we need any clarification. Sit at a place where you can see the speaker easily and listen. Don't carry any prejudice or bias against the speaker. If you have the desire to learn, you can learn from even a child or any great teacher. You can always take notes. That is a good habit. As I said, as time passes, we may not recollect everything that we listen to. Ask for clarification. So these are some of the tips that we can practice in day-to-day situations to be able to develop these skills, this art of listening. Then we also can follow these steps of paraphrasing. Whenever the speaker says something, we can paraphrase it for our understanding and confirm. Repetition is another important tool that you can use. Probing for any missing information, clarity for any points that you might not completely understand, and remember the important points of the message for any future applications. So good listener always maintains eye contact with the speaker. He or she takes notes and even makes notes. So note taking and note making is a good habit. Is always physically as well as mentally involved in the process of understanding the message or communication, avoids negative mannerisms, exercises his or her listening muscles, follows the golden rule that effective communication is other direct. Remember, listening is the most powerful form of acknowledgement, a way of saying that you are important. And this is how we can also build good relations. Listening also leads to learning. If you have an open mind, you encourage for personal learning yourself. Listening, my friends, remember, also reduces stress and tension. It minimizes confusion and misunderstanding by eliminating related stress. And therefore, listening is critical even in conflict resolution. Many conflicts can be resolved if you simply lend your ears to the other person. As I said, listening and hearing, there is much difference. To reiterate, hearing is just a physical process. It is natural and a passive process. Whereas listening is not only physical but mental process. It's an active, a voluntarily process, and it's a learned process. It's an art, a skill that you need to develop. Remember, listening is art, and therefore you must choose to participate in the process of listening. And the most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. And this will happen only when you are a good listener. Listening is an art that requires attention over talent, spirit over ego, and others over self. Only then we can have light over darkness as far as our knowledge and learning are concerned. Another full form of the word listen could be this: looking interested, involving yourself, staying on the target, testing your understanding, evaluating the message, and neutralizing your feelings. The next skill that we develop if we are good at listening is the skill of speaking. So, this skill of speaking is again very essential, because it is said that if you speak rude, you can't sell honey. But if you speak sweet, you can even sell a chitty. That is the power of speaking. Now, it is a productive skill because we produce language, but many people have this problem, glossophobia, fear of speaking, especially in public or in a group. And that we need to overcome. Again, this is possible with adequate practice. So, the 4 steps of planning, preparation, practice, and presentation can help anyone to develop his or her speaking skills. Now, remember, whenever you speak, a good speech is like a pencil. It must have a point. If you speak pointless, people would not like. Another important aspect in communication, especially when you speak, we have to ensure that we finish speaking before our audience stops listening. Now, we use tongue to communicate, to speak. Remember, this tongue has no bones, but it is so strong that it can either break somebody's heart or it can also win somebody's heart. That is the power of language, and therefore we must be careful in the choice of words that we have. Now, when we talk about fear, this 4-letter word can have 2 possible interpretations. One, FEAR, can stand for forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. That is how I'm going to progress. So the choice is yours. Which meaning you would like to take? Look at this statement, and I'm sure that you would find it very challenging to comprehend. I know that you believe you understand what you think I say, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. So, such kind of speaking will not result in effective communication. So these are some sub skills of speaking that you need to develop or practice or work upon them. Number one, purpose. Whenever you speak, you must think about the expected outcome. What is the purpose? Are you only going to inform or persuade or entertain? What is the purpose? Then accordingly, you need to plan, prepare, and practice. So once you decide the area, finalize your topic, carry out research, brainstorm, mind map, and then write and ultimately rehearse. Then we have presentation. Remember, each one of us, no matter even the topic is same, we have the ability to present it differently. That is the creative use of language. Then posture, your body language. Then pronunciation, which might carry mother tongue interference, we need to overcome that. Then the pace at which we speak, the speed and the pauses that we take, we need to be effective in that. Persuasion and politeness. Passion, if you have enthusiasm, interest, passion, you will be able to give more justice to what you speak on. And personal touch, whenever you speak, you can connect with the audience, you can have personal touch, you can incorporate their names into your talk and build this trust. Presence of mind, having good presence of mind, especially when it comes to question and answer session. So these 10 sub skills really help anyone become a good speaker. Now, when we speak, we need to take care of our non-verbal communication, that is body language, because we deal with people. And people stands here for postures and gestures, eye contact, orientation, proximity, looks and appearance, or expressions of emotions. We need to take care of all these and avoid negative body language. So putting hands into the pockets, is not a positive body language. So we must know what is negative, what is positive, whether we stand or whether we sit and communicate. Even the way we use our hands, we never point a finger, for example, we use our entire hand. So all such small things become very important when we communicate. How do we stand? The picture in the middle is more effective than the posture that you see in the left and right pictures. You also need to read your audience, whether they are engaged, engrossed in listening to you, or are they bored, or are they thinking about what you are saying. Sometimes you may get warning signs, people looking at their wristwatches again and again, getting little angry, losing patience, yawning, and the list might go on. Along with body language, you also need to take care of your pronunciation. Look at a simple word. When it changes its form, the word photograph, the stress moves from the first syllable to the second when I say photograph, and from the second to the third syllable when I say photographic. So this is how we need to practice pronunciation. Especially to begin with, we must know when to use a falling tone and when to use a rising tone. So falling tone we usually use when we make statements or reply or exclamatory sentences, when there are orders or commands or warnings and announcements, and especially for WH questions or polite English. So WH questions, what's your name? So I bring my voice down, especially at the end of the sentence for the last word. Where are you from? What are you doing? Where are you going? Right? WH questions. So look at these examples. Who are you? I'm a student. Good morning. Hello. How beautiful this place is. Beware of the dawn. The train is delayed by 40 minutes. Yes. No. So you have a falling tone in all these examples. On the contrary, we use a rising tone, especially when we ask yes, no type questions. Do you understand? Or when we make any request, or there is hesitation in speech or unsure statements, or when we have punctuation, especially commas and pauses, or concern interest. Look at these examples. Do you have a pen? So the last word, pen, I raise my voice. Can you drive? will you do me a favor? Is this the bag you were talking about? Are you at college? Is the movie interesting? So the last word, I raise my voice. So that is how we need to take care of our pronunciation, tone, intonation, so on and so forth. So how we really communicate, 7% of what we communicate is based on the choice of words, vocabulary. 38% is based on voice inflections. And remember, 55% depends on our body language. And therefore, we must take care of our body language when it comes to speaking and overcome these challenges. So, what we understand today through this small presentation is the art of listening and the art of speaking that we need to develop. If we practice, we will be able to perform, and therefore let us remember that if you wish to be a good speaker, you must be first a good listener, and listening is more as an art than merely a science. Thank you very much for your patient listening. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to take them. Thank you.